Hello, my lovey. Welcome to Espresso Yourself with Melissa and Leslie. I am here with Leslie Lindsey Davis, fabulous author, speaker, all the things. She's wonderful. And we're going to talk about boundaries. Oh, yes. So, here's the thing. In my opinion, boundaries is a pretty simple idea. Somebody acts a certain way, and you get to choose if you respond, participate, remove yourself. In reality, it can be really tricky to execute these boundaries in a way that feels powerful, authentic, and kind. So, what are your thoughts, LLD?
Well, the number one thing for me was understanding that we actually have two boundaries. Two, not one, but two. We've got the boundary with ourselves,
Oh,
and that actually helps us create and establish the boundary with other people.
I love that. I love that. And it also forwards, I'm going to say it, Marcus Aurelius, OG, Stoic philosopher, talking about yourself as an other, as a you. Like I will talk to Melissa and it will help me step back, realize what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, whatever is coming upon me, what emotions, and then I get to choose how I respond. And it eliminates the reactionary part of ourselves, which is great when you're a cave person. It kept us alive and evolving. However, now there are no saber-toothed tigers. It is actually just, whatever perceived threat is in reality not life-threatening.
Well, the other thing is when we do not have a clear boundary with ourselves, and this was something that I recognized doing my own discovery of, who in the heck Leslie was. When I did not have a clear boundary with myself, I was speaking to myself in an unkind fashion. I was treating myself in an unkind fashion. And then I was getting upset and angry with other people when they were doing the exact same thing that I was already doing to myself. And what I came to realize is how I establish and maintain that boundary with myself. And I love that you mentioned Marcus Aurelius and that other you and all of those kinds of things. When we can see ourselves as an entity other than ourselves, it's easier for us to create these clear boundaries. I always say there are three people in the conversation. There's me, myself, and I.
Oh,
Me
I
and
love it.
myself just want us to be happy, but I sees everything. Okay. So when we allow me and myself to tear down the boundary with ourself, I is sitting there screaming, hey, hold on just a minute. What you're doing is you're saying to the outside world that they can trample your boundary. So the first boundary that so many people try and establish is the boundary with the world. And that's not the
Right.
boundary you need to do first. The boundary you need to do first is the one with yourself. I will no longer speak to myself in this fashion. If I make a mistake, I will simply acknowledge it was a mistake,
Right.
period.
Period. And with no value judgment. I think that's the critical line that we get to draw is just as if we were dealing with another person, a child, another fallible human being, we get to say, "Oh, wow, that I can see how I would have thought that was a boneheaded thing to do, and yet it seemed right at the time. I did it." And just like you say, acknowledge, release.
Yeah. Just move on. Well, and then when we catch ourselves trying to call ourselves names,
Mm,
we need to pause, take a breath, and then reframe the thought.
yeah.
And what I learned to do is focus on behavior. Don't focus on people. Don't even focus on yourself. Focus on your behavior. So let's say, for example, you were running a long line of numbers. I know you love numbers, but you're running a very long line of numbers, and you spent 15 minutes running that very long line of numbers, and you got this crazy answer that is not anywhere close to right.
Right, right.
And in the past, what I would have done is I would have said, "Oh my gosh, how could I have been so stupid? I didn't realize my
Yeah.
fingers were on the wrong keys," and gone on and on
Right,
and
right,
on.
right. Stupid, idiot, moron, all of these ugly, ugly things that we wouldn't say it to a colleague. We wouldn't say it to anyone in our household, a friend, not ever. And yet we're ready to dish that out to ourselves. WTF? You don't need to do that.
Well, and even worse than that, and yes, I'm waving around the appropriate colored pen. But even worse than that, we will recount the story, including the stupids, the idiots, the morons, to at least 10 other people.
Right, right. So we're only, and here's the thing, lizard brain loves the sound of our own voice. So when you're saying this to other people, even when you're saying like, oh, you foolish, blippity blip, what were you thinking? Or, whatever it is, we soak that up. Our voice is the authority. And especially if we're saying it aloud, I mean, it's an echo chamber when we're thinking it, but when we say it aloud to others, to ourselves, to whomever, then that is cemented in. You are undoing the important work of reprogramming your subconscious when you're degrading yourself verbally.
And what you're teaching other people is just because you've got a boundary doesn't mean they need to honor it.
Correct.
What it's telling everybody else, including yourself, is this boundary is very flimsy. It's made out of cardboard and matchsticks, and all I need to do is lightly push on it, and the whole thing is going to topple over, and that's okay. So, what I like to tell people is Rapunzel, remember Rapunzel? She lived up in this
Let
tower
down
and she
your
had
hair.
to let down your hair and all that. Envision that you are Rapunzel, but you voluntarily have put yourself in this tower because you value yourself so much that you are only going to allow certain people, certain things into your space, but you're going to protect that tower. And we know from looking at pictures and watching movies and all these documentaries and things, these towers that were built, hundreds, thousands of years ago, they're still standing, right?
Yes,
Because
gravity works.
and having solid building material works. So if we build our boundary much like Rapunzel's tower that she is in, then we are teaching ourselves that we are not going to allow that negative conversation in, that demeaning, those demeaning words, that we are only going to accept certain behavior. And what that also demonstrates to the outside world is nope, our boundary is not made out of cardboard and matchsticks. They're going to have to climb over a moat and then figure
Right.
out how to get to the tower.
100%. And I do think that we get to honor ourselves by creating that boundary of sterner stuff and also honoring ourselves by refusing to let it be trampled. And that can feel unkind. Take it from this deep South, Louisiana raised person that you exist to make other people feel good. But when we honor ourselves and treat ourselves as a worthwhile entity, all of a sudden things fall into place in a way that at first feels quite uncomfortable and indeed foreign and just achy, itchy, terrible. However, that really is the way to be and exist and execute your life in this world, because when you make the rules for how you're going to be treated and you insist that you treat yourself that well and that you will not allow others to treat you shabbily, I mean, game on. You're announcing your worth. You're not taking any BS or any troubles or ill-placed accusations or blame, because if you are around people who are in the blame game, they don't want to take responsibility for the choices that they've made that have allowed their life to become XYZ, whatever it is that they see as deficient. they're going to say that it's your fault or their fault, or, everyone at work is out to get you. Well, guess what? When everyone is out to get you, you're the one being the twit. Everyone's not out to get anybody. We're all just bumbling around in this, rock tumbler of life, trying to do our thing. So when you feel like everyone's the jerk or everyone's out to get you, no, you're the jerk. And you need to grow up, own it. It might not be your fault. It is your problem. And you get to figure out how you're going to handle it.
When we start setting our boundaries, getting clear about the boundaries with ourselves, and we start building that boundary with other people, here is the red flag alert that I want to give. When we start changing the rules of how we are going to allow people to treat us, people around us are not going to like it, because they are used to being able to do certain things in a certain way. And especially if we're in a work situation where there are certain unwritten rules and established patterns. And let's say, for example, you suddenly decide, you come to your senses and you realize, you know what, I'm no longer going to work 70 hours a week. I'm no longer going to volunteer for every project that comes along. This is what I am going to do based on what my criteria is. Yes, I will do my job. Yes, I will meet my KPIs. But when you start establishing that boundary and you start very kindly and respectfully saying, right now, I'm not able to take that project on. Right now, I'm not able to do such and such. People are going to start trying to push back. Now, the best response that you can give to any situation when somebody's pushing back against your boundary is actually silence.
And that is crucial to get comfortable in the discomfort of silence. You've given your answer and you get to maintain that line. And keep in mind, the other people are not trying to, persecute you or, denigrate you, put you down, overwhelm you. They don't like change. They've come to expect that you're going to behave in a certain way. And now you're changing that. And so they're like, what? No, you're the person who always says yes. This can't be. That's what's happening instinctively, not on purpose, not because they're bad people, but just instinctively. We do not like change. We establish, it's been shown in relationships, in the first 2 weeks, we establish how the relationship is going to work. And then if months later or years later, you decide to change that, it's much more difficult. Whereas if you enter into the relationship, into the job, into the workplace, in operating in a certain way, then they will understand that that's how you're going to be. Unfortunately, a lot of times we get very enthusiastic, guilty right here. And, and like we're overdoing and overcompensating and doing more. And that becomes what people expect. And so then after the bloom is off the rose, a couple of weeks in, you're just like, yeah, this is just my JOB. Then they're like, wait, what happened to that super enthusiastic volunteer?
Or you do what I did, which I'm apparently a slower learner than you are. It took me 20 years to realize that I was sacrificing myself on the altar of everybody else, and said, no, this is not going to work anymore. And when I pushed back so hard, I knocked everybody down. And that's not a good thing. That's really not a good thing.
Well, the pendulum swings, right?
Yes. And what we want, as you are listening to this, what I want, I'm going to speak for my fabulous friend Mel as well. What we want you to understand as you are listening to this is get clear with yourself what you will and will not accept. And then start paying attention to how you are speaking to yourself and how you are treating yourself. And is it in line with what you truly will and will not accept? And as you get clearer and as you get more intentional about what you will and will not accept from yourself, then that's going to start migrating into what you will and will not accept from other people. But again, recognize this: people do not like change. You do not need to tell anyone that you are doing anything. In fact, I strongly advise against you telling anyone that you're doing anything to improve yourself, to increase your self-worth. don't share it with anyone because all you're going to do is get pushback.
Maybe, maybe not. But honestly, I think that the practice of not telling others what you're doing and why is because you value why you're doing it. And you value that you are the authority in your life and you don't need to share it with anyone. And
No,
I think that it kind of ushers in a sense of autonomy and a sense of power because you don't need other people's buy-in, approval, nod, check, check plus, yay. You don't need that. We get to do what we want to do for ourselves and with our boundaries because we're the authority on our lives.
100%. And that's where so many of us have been taught by society, by generations, by, whatever you want to consider. We've been taught that we do not get to be the masters of our own ship. It's
Right.
time. It's time for each and every single person to become the master of their own ship, to treat themselves with kindness, to speak to themselves with kindness, to have a personal boundary with themselves so that they have a strong boundary with the world. And when people around us start strengthening their own personal boundaries, we actually will have better relationships, better working
Yes.
relationships, because everyone is intentional and everyone is making certain that their personal needs are met, not at the expense of someone else, but
Mhm.
simply their personal needs are being met.
Yes, that's gorgeous. What a beautiful way to wrap it up. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. A little espresso yourself. We are stirring up joy and we'll be back later. So have a great day. Happy Friday. Happy whatever day it is where you are. And see you next time.